I was 28 when I discovered that the town I grew up in no longer existed. Not just that people had left or the buildings had collapsed. No. I mean, it had vanished completely. Erased. As if it had never been there. But I remember it. I live there. And I swear on everything that breathes, Morden Hollow was real. It began with a missing person. My childhood friend Cassie. We hadn't spoken in years, but 3 weeks ago, she messaged me out of nowhere. "You ever dream about Morden Hollow?" Then she sent me a photo. It was blurry, but I knew what I was looking at. The rusted town sign, half buried in ivy. It used to stand at the edge of the forest, right before the old general store. A few hours later, she was gone. Her phone last pinged near a forest trail in upstate Vermont. But when the local rangers checked the area, there was no sign of a town. No sign of Cassie. They assumed she got lost hiking. I knew better. I borrowed a car and drove north. My GPS glitched the closer I got to the coordinates Cassie had shared. After the 5th time it rerouted me into nothing, I gave up and followed an old logging road by memory, just like we used to when we snuck out of school. That's when the fog started. Thick, white, and silent. It clung to the trees like spiderwebs, refusing to lift. Every few minutes, I thought I saw movement deeper in the woods, flashes of color, the shape of a figure, but nothing stayed long enough to focus on. Then I saw it. The sign. Morden Hollow. Pop. 341. Except this time, the population number had been scratched out. Deep gouges in the metal. Below it, in smeared black paint. We never left. Stepping into Morden Hollow was like slipping into a dream you forgot you were having. Everything looked almost right. The buildings were all still there, cracked and mossy, but standing. The roads were warped and broken like something had moved under them. And the air? It felt wrong. Still too still. No bits, no bucks. Even my footsteps made no sound. I passed a bakery, Mrs. Ellison's place. Her window was open. Fresh pies always sat there cooling when I was a kid. Today, a single pie was on the sill, covered in mold, surrounded by flies that didn't move. Inside the window, something watched me. I turned away before I could get a good look. My old house, set near the woods, at the end of a curved street with dead trees on both sides. Every light in it was on, but there was no power line anymore, just hanging wires torn loose from the poles. Yet the house glowed like it was waiting for me. The front door creaked open before I touched it. I stepped inside. Nothing had changed. The same wallpaper, the same chip tile floor, the scratch marks from our dog Lucky still carved into the hallway. But the family photos lining the staircase had all been burned. Not just faded, charred black, faces melted away, glass shattered inward like something had clawed through them. That's when I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Then a voice. Familiar. Why did you leave us? I froze. The voice belonged to my mother. But my mother had been dead for 7 years. Still, it came again. Louder this time. Why did you leave us? I ran up the stairs, calling her name like a fool. The hallway was longer than I remembered. Too long. It twisted in ways no hallway should. Doors stretched on both sides. Some open, others pulsing with light like there was a heartbeat behind them. I opened the third door. Inside was my old room, untouched, except for one thing, a woman standing in the far corner with her back to me. Pale, thin, dressed in the night. My mother died in. She spoke again. You were supposed to stay. I stepped closer. Her arms jerked up, elbows cracking as if they'd never moved before. Her head began to turn, not just her neck, but her whole head twisting like a screw. She looked at me with empty sockets where her eyes should be. They all stayed. I slammed the door and ran. I didn't care if I was hallucinating, didn't care what was real. I just knew something was wrong with this place. As I sprinted down the stairs, I saw them outside the windows, figures standing in the street. Dozens of them. Some are people I recognized from childhood. Others looked not human. Their limbs were too long. Their mouths in close. Eyes that glowed red in the fog. They didn't speak. They just watched. I reached the front door and yanked it open. There was no street anymore. Just forest. Endless, black, silent. And behind me, the house breathed. The walls pulsed inward, like lungs filling and emptying. The wallpaper peeled back to reveal something underneath. Flesh? Muscle? I didn't want to know. Then I heard Cassie screaming from beneath the floorboards. I followed it down into the basement. The basement was wrong. The stairs went down farther than they ever should. The walls turned from concrete to stone to bone. Literal bone. Human skulls embedded in the walls like fossils. Some were still wet. At the bottom was a door made of mirrors. Hundreds of reflections of me stared back. Except in each one, I looked slightly different. Some versions of me were crying. Some had black eyes. One was smiling with bloody teeth. I opened the door and saw Cassie. She was hanging in midair, arms stretched out, mouth open in a silent scream. Her eyes locked onto mine, and suddenly she dropped like a stone. I caught her, but her body was ice cold. She whispered one word, "Run." Behind her, the mirrored door shattered, and something crawled out. I never got a good look at it. All I remember was noise. Hundreds of whispers, overlapping in dozens of voices. Some male, some female, some not human at all. They told me things. Things I can't repeat. Things that made me bleed from my ears. I grabbed Cassie and ran. Through the tunnels. Through the twisting town. Through the watching faces. The figures tried to stop us. One reached out and touched my arm, and I swear I lost time. A whole day, gone in a blink. When I looked back, my arm had aged 40 years in one spot. Still, we ran. Eventually, the fog parted and the road returned. They found us a few hours later, curled up on the roadside. Cassie was alive, but barely responsive. She still doesn't speak, just stares into corners and mumbles something about the town under the town. They said there's no such place on any map. No records. No photos. Even my childhood birth certificate no longer lists Morden Hollow. But I remember, and every night since then, I dream of that hallway, that mirror, and the thing that's still waiting beneath the house, whispering, "You were supposed to stay."